Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the G-Man Show. Today we're back on TikTok. We're taking a look at the cost of living crisis and inflation in Australia. What do people have to say? Let's jump in and see.
Here's the problem with inflation going up and wages not going up. My real estate and my owner have just asked to raise my rent by $50. Now, I've had that happen before, but I've never had them ask for anything over than $5 to $10. $50. I'll be frank with you, this is not a house. This is a duplex. I can hardly fit anything in my lounge room. This place is tiny. One head of lettuce at the moment is $7. Those are leaves. Filling up your car of petrol can set you back like $110. And that's for the shit petrol. Now, I don't know anything about the progress of what the government does with Centrelink, but I'm assuming they're not raising that either. If inflation goes up, then wages should too, to reflect that. Otherwise, people are going to end up homeless. And I've been homeless before. So when I got that email yesterday saying that they wanted to increase my rent, I spiraled. For context, when I started my job that I'm leaving now, I had $18,000 worth of savings. I have $5,000 left now. Me realizing now that I've had to dip into my savings to survive off my wage is depressing. And mind you, that was a full-time wage. And I was doing the roles of about 3 different people. And then I applied specifically for a program for people that are low income to be able to buy a house. They rejected me because they said my wage was too low. And the repayments for the house that I would have bought was lower than my rent. So make it make sense, because it doesn't at all. And as I work in the construction industry, can we also remember that a lot of these construction places that specifically build homes are tanking? There are 1 million vacant homes in Australia. We don't have a crisis where we've got no homes to put people in. No, we have a housing crisis where people can't afford to rent to pay someone else's home loan, someone else who probably has 5 or 6 properties that they're trying to rent out. Negative gearing, my guy. The landlords, so rude, man. Like, I feel like the world needs a restructure because it's not working. You know, this capitalism thing, it's just not working.
I can get the frustration, but when they start throwing things around like negative gearing and landlords are all the problem and all of that, they don't understand the bigger, broader dynamics that are driving up the prices, right? That are driving up the prices for landlords. She'll say she's paying off the mortgage of 5 people or of someone who's got 5 houses. I can tell you now that rent is not touching the sides at the moment. It's not touching the sides. The interest is very, very high. Most people borrow the minimum, leverage as much as possible to get into the property market, especially with investors on interest-only loans. And over the last few years, they've only started to come down a little bit now. We've had 2 cuts, I think it is. Well, they went up 13 times. And before people get in and say, well, it's back to normal prices, the interest rates, it's at the all-time sort of average now. Yeah, at a pure value level of the interest rate, yes. But the debt is so much bigger, therefore having a huge impact. And unfortunately, it's driving up the prices for people, for renters and landlords. So everyone's sort of drowning here. Who's the problem? Probably the government. The government's not doing anything about it. All the government does is encourage this landlord and, everyone's Gina Reinhardt and the people that are renting are the battlers and take it up with your landlord. But it's the government that's driving up the prices of everything. I'm not saying she doesn't have a good point. Like she makes sense, but I think the financial literacy is not the highest here. The other thing I want to talk about that people say is my rent is the same amount as my mortgage. Yeah, sure, makes sense to say that. But the bank's not going to give you money if you've got a low income and you've got $5,000 in the bank. Super high risk. They're never going to lend you anything. So unfortunately, you get caught in the rent trap.
Like, how are you even... You fucking serious? I just went to a cafe this morning in Melbourne, Australia, and I paid $45 for 2 eggs on toast and avocado on the side. And earlier this year, I was in Bali, and it was like $10 to $15 for the same thing. Like, how are you even meant to live right now with the rising cost of living and inflation in Australia and work a normal job where you're earning $40,000 to $100,000 a year. Like, money just isn't the same anymore. $40,000 to $100,000 a year on a salary or working on an hourly rate, it just isn't the same as what it was 5 years ago. The inflation is crazy right now and things are just way more expensive than what they should be. It's just like ridiculous. I know there's so many people living paycheck to paycheck. They got smashed by the pandemic. So many people unemployed because they didn't want to take the jab. And just people that are barely have any money right now, more than whatever I've seen before. It's just ridiculous. Things shouldn't cost this much money. Are you?
All right, let's talk about this. So at the end of the day, eating out, going to cafes, unless you have money, unless you're upper middle class, and
I just went to a cafe this morning in Melbourne.
Or have no debt, you're going to end up paying an arm and a leg of money that you cannot afford to spend if you're in this situation. Just don't go anywhere. Unfortunately, that's the way where we are. High inflation, people can't even afford. This would have been seen only a few years ago as a basic sort of treat. Go out for breakfast. Not so basic anymore. I recently saw a small coffee for $6.50. Small, not large, small. It is nuts out there.
And then you've got the government saying productivity is down. Yeah, this comment is absolutely right. Australia is bloody cooked. And then you've got the government saying productivity is down. No shit, productivity is down. If people are working harder than ever, and most people I know, they're working their full-time job, they've got a couple of side hustles, and they still can't afford a house, they still can't have a future for themselves or for their kids, no wonder productivity is down. You know, we have a serious problem when people who are university qualified, and I'm talking like engineers, doctors, lawyers, healthcare professionals, teachers, people who are in really high demand, these people can't afford to live where they are required to work. That is a serious issue. No wonder productivity is down. I think a lot of young Australians are in this position now where they're like, what's the point? I did everything that I was required to do, all these things that were promised to me for following the right path that was set for me and doing the right thing by society. It's actually not bringing me any happiness. It's not giving me the things I was promised. So what's the point? What am I doing? What are we doing? What's everyone doing? Because yeah, at this point, I'm working my ass off to rent my landlord's fuck-ass small mold-infested studio, and I don't know, like, is it bad to want a little bit more for my life? Is it bad to want to go travel and see the world and do what makes me happy? Like, I don't know.
I think that, to date, I think the people that have come on here are not highly financial literate and understand all the driving factors behind it. But it is true, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. It isn't just young people. It's people of all ages who had been in a position to own their own home and knock down the mortgage when it was somewhat affordable. I wouldn't say property in Melbourne, for that matter, has been affordable for 15 years. But if you haven't got in a position to do that, you're going to suffer tremendously. You're going to be caught in a debt trap. But once again, there's a bit of lifestyle creep here too. You got to understand where you're sitting. And at the moment, it's time to tighten the belt, not talk about wanting to go for traveling and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of young people, a lot of people of all ages are really feeling it tight. They're doing it tough. Money is just not going as far as it has been in the past. And being or the working class or lower middle class, where you could have a good, comfortable life and still have a bit of money left over and save up, maybe even get a house, those days are fading very quickly. Those days are fading. Even going on that one holiday a year, having stable employment, a lot of layoffs happening across the board. I've been keeping my finger on the tab of redundancies lately. And a lot of big companies, they're dropping hundreds of people, thousands of people. And a lot of people out there looking for work at the moment who, for no reason of their own, not due to performance or anything like that, due to corporate cost cutting, have lost their jobs. So times are tough. Time to really tighten that belt up.
Have you seen the Meriton scandal? It's absolutely cooked. Basically, this shady email was leaked from the Meriton bosses in the head office to let all of their landlords know that they need to be pushing rents as hard as possible and signing 6-month leases so they can increase the rent more often. I currently live in a Meriton and our rent went up yesterday by 35%. That's $230 a week and almost $12,000 a year. I met someone yesterday in the Meriton next to us who said that they've been pushed out because their rent is going up by $1,000 a week. And
that's astronomical. That's all part of the plan. That's Meriton are those buy-to-rent joints, build-to-rent. So they build them with no intent to ever sell them. It's like large managed apartments that people rent for the duration of their life. The life of the apartment, that is. They're never intended to be sold or owned by private owners. That's where we're going. And so you get all these international students coming in. Meriton's, I don't know exactly where she's from, it doesn't say. But it would be in probably a good area, in a city. You get a lot of international students coming over that are funded by wealthy families. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. And they are more than happy to put them up for that much rent, considering the extortionate amount that they're paying for their children's school fees, university fees.
Room. That's obviously illegal, having multiple people living in the same room. Unfortunately, there is no limit to how much Meriton wants to increase the apartments every year, no limit to the percentage, and you can't do anything about it unless you want to go to the tribunal. Not fun. Have you...
Yeah, that's the future, guys. All right, let's take a look at the supermarket prices.
This is how bad the cost of living is in Australia to shop like a typical Aussie.
Case of Great Northern beer, $55. That's on sale down from $65. $7 for 6 leaf sausages. $6.95 for Vegemite, and that's on sale. $7.20 for
I can't get past that. $7.20 for a packet of Tim Tams. You got to be joking. Only a few years ago, like $3, $2.50, $7.20 for a packet of biscuits that you can eat in about 10 minutes. It's incredible. They're still selling though, otherwise they wouldn't be on the shelves.
$5.50 for my coffee.
And note that we're just 5 sleeps away from the Australian federal election.
The government's not going to help you. Things are only going to get worse. Things are only going to get worse. I hate to say it, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. We're in for a few bad years, a few tough years.
Living is in Australia.
I think the damage that's being done at the moment, it's going to take a generation to undo it, if ever. There's some radical change happening at the moment. The working class and the lower middle class are being wiped out, essentially.
You want to know how bad inflation is in Australia right now? Try and order 2 pizzas for less than $50. Bet you can't. Oh, you want a Hawaiian and a meat lovers? Okay, transfer me $25 for yours. $25 for a fucking pizza? Are you serious? You want to know how bad...
Mate, just don't buy the pizza, dude. Yeah, I think if you go anywhere that's like a wood-fired pizza, it's going to cost you low in the 30s
Australia
now.
Right now.
I went out recently for dinner and to a pizza restaurant. Yeah, $32 for a capricciosa at a wood-fired pizzeria. It's incredible. That's why I don't go out and eat out too often. It's only a very rare treat because when you get home, you just say to yourself, how do I justify if I say you went out, maybe you went on a date, maybe you took your wife or took your husband out or whatever it is. You go out for a pizza and a couple of beers together, $120, $100. Better off just eating in.
I talk to my kids about why one set of their school uniforms costs more than my entire childhood wardrobe, and that my mum's generation's aged care fees will rival that of a luxury cruise ship. And if I be lucky enough to find a box of eggs, why I may not be able to afford them. Is this just the vibe, or is there a plan to fix it?
The vibe.
I think everyone in this room and everyone watching at home has felt enormous cost of living pressure over the last few years and still are. They really still are. We're starting to see inflation come down, which is a good thing. By no means are we out of the woods. We're still focused as a government very much on doing what we can to help households with cost of living relief. Aged care fees, we are trying to do what we can to build a lot more aged care places, which we will need. Every nursing home I go to right now is full. And the number of 80-year-olds in the next few years, people turning 80, is about to double. Because
I like how they just didn't answer the question at all. The government can't do anything about prices. Things are going to go. They're going to go a lot higher before there's any sort of relief. Before wages catch up, if they ever do. This is a new normal. People say, "Oh, when's the government going to step in and do something about it?" They can't do anything about it, and if they could, they probably wouldn't.
Crucial entry age into aged care, but on the whole, we have been focused very much in our time in government on trying to deal with the economy-wide pressure on prices that's hit most of the world, really, since the end of COVID and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We've tried to do that in a responsible way that was matched with budget management, but we know people are still really hurting in households and there's still a lot of pressure for us to focus on. We know we have to do more.
I think the three biggest issues in this election campaign are going to be cost of living, cost of living, cost of living, and then if there's time, more cost of living. There is simply nothing else that people are more worried about. And while it's great...
Exactly, because you need to stretch your money out as far as you can to survive in this world. People say life's not all about money. No, it is, especially when times are tough, it is. That's what everyone cares about, and that's how Labor got elected. Promising to give handouts and cut HEX fee debts and all that sort of stuff for the people who are doing it tough. They've said, we're going to help you out. But really, things are just going to get worse. Look at electricity prices are about to go up again. Or they already have. I've been reading articles about that. And I've got a video that's coming up very soon where they're talking about there was energy bill relief. It's like $100 a year or something. Bills have gone up through the roof, eaten away and more.
That inflation is going down, and this is a problem that the government has largely inherited, and there are economic forces beyond its control. A lot to do with very, very bad decisions made during COVID, having said that. But just because prices are not going up as much as they were doesn't mean that...
Well, they're not going down.
They're going down, that's right.
We don't want them to go down because that would be deflation, right?
That's right. We don't want them to go down. You don't want them to go down. It's going to stay pretty much where they are. You know, it is not going to come down. And so... This is what Sophie's saying, this is the new normal, this is the new reality. You hear people talk about, the new climate reality that we all just have to get our heads around or else. This is a new economic reality that we have to get our heads around. And if people's wages have not been keeping up with the rate of inflation, then you are behind and you will stay behind until you can get back up. And that is why it's just such a ferocious demon.
That's what people don't understand about inflation. Once it's up, it never comes down. People say, the inflation rate's coming down, like things are going to get cheaper. No, they're just going to grow slightly slower. But once again, you could have me fooled. Every time I walk around Woolworths and Coles and any supermarket, and I just notice incremental changes, every sort of few weeks on things. I walk around and I'm just saying, get effed at everything. I look at the price tag. I'm like, nah. Just don't buy a lot of things I normally would have bought in the past because it's a complete piss take. It is a complete piss take. Wages aren't going to catch up to this, especially for those people who are in unskilled labour or entry level or menial jobs. This is the new normal. Trying to stretch as much as you can out of your value of the deflating dollar, the money you're earning. What's government going to do about it? They're going to do nothing about it. They're just going to, like that first guy that was jibber-jabbering. He didn't even say anything. He started talking about old people. This woman wants to know here and now what's going to change. Well, nothing's going to change, unfortunately.
Next time you're at Woolworths, do your Australian duty and steal a goddamn lettuce. Because Woolworths knows, like the European Bank uncovered, that it is not wage increases driving inflation, it is the increases in corporate profit. Inflation is being used as a smokescreen so Woolworths can add to their $2 billion a year profit margins, and instead of easily absorbing costs associated with supply chain issues and energy prices, those costs are passed on to you, the consumer, despite their record profits and your stagnating wages. The Reserve Bank knows that corporations are doing this, and their solution is to curb your spending power by demanding wages fail to increase while interest rates do. Your buying power is being affected so that the buying power of corporate CEOs is not. Next,
I think the thing here is the value of the dollar is being decreased. But we're importing a lot more people via immigration. They need to buy groceries. They're going to be at Woolworths and Coles. So we're importing new customers to prop that up as well. So while people might buy less, they might tighten the belt, they might not buy all the extras that you might normally get, other people are coming to buy their essentials. So they're pushing up the sales. So big business, they love inflation. Not inflation, immigration. That's more customers.
I guess I can say that I can't afford to go out every week with my friends and have dinner.
At the moment, my bank account's depleting, even though I'm working the same. I'm spending the same I was before, but before I was still making and saving money.
Instead of taking my 2 normal coffees, I've just reduced it down to 1.
It's really hard to get out and do social activities. Going out for dinner or lunch or brunch, any food. Yeah.
We are not shopping at IGA anymore. We're shopping at Aldi. We find it's a lot cheaper.
I guess so.
Yeah. And you got to also feel for these hospitality businesses. They don't want to push their prices up. It's not like they're doing it for fun because they know they know they put things up a few dollars. Customers won't come in. You know, they put the coffee up $1 or $2 to try and recoup the huge overheads that they're having to deal with. Customer will just walk off. They won't come in and buy the coffee. So they don't want to do that. They have to do it. The same as these pubs, independent pubs, small pizza shops, things like that. They have to do it. But the thing is, more and more people buy less pizza or coffees. But unfortunately, who suffers? These small businesses go under and people's quality of life suffers. So it's the small man, it's the small people. The government's still taxing all these businesses through the absolute butt. Land taxes through the roof, payroll tax. Who knows how many other taxes there are that I don't know about that the government places on businesses. Incredible. Income tax, obviously. Tax after tax after tax.
Back right on our spending, going out for dinners, not using toll roads, not having numerous cups of coffee a day, really thinking about how we can save money because it really is hurting everybody.
We know that Australians are hurting at the moment. We've seen the government already put in place some immediate policy relief. Every Australian received a tax cut on the 1st of July, and every Australian has received some sort of subsidy through their electricity.
Now, this one here is about a year old, this video. No, this hasn't aged very well. This person's not government, this is an economist. However,
people are still hurting.
Saving someone $100 or $200 a year in electricity is not, they're saying, oh, we're fighting on the cost of living. Everything else is going up. That's absorbed instantly. That $200 a year probably gets absorbed in 2 weeks. And then once again, electricity is going through the roof. A lot of people probably won't be even heating their homes anymore, or heating them very minimally because it's just through the roof how much it costs. Yeah, electricity, yeah, we're helping you out with that, guys. Yeah, sure you are. I should have privatised everything and we wouldn't be in this problem, but all the chickens are coming home to roost now, all at the same time, and the small guy, he pays for it.
Even after that. Now, the one thing that economics tells us that is hurting all Australians is actually inflation. So the truth is, the best thing we can do to help all Australians is bring inflation down. That means we need the government not to spend too much in the economy. We don't want them to stoke more inflation.
Well, if I could just address the one thing that you've said that only is helping people is electricity. What about dental, medical, house insurance, car insurance, registration, tolls on the road, petrol, groceries, the list goes on. Most people who are middle class and below are really, I don't know how they're getting by day, I seriously don't. My husband and I have cut back right on our spending, going out for dinners, not using toll roads, not having numerous cups of coffee a day, really thinking about how we can save money because it really is hurting everybody. When we're talking about immediate action, it has to be immediate action. When I think of how the government's sold out, privatised so many areas of our lives.
You tell them.
And they can keep putting the prices up and up and up they go, particularly on the toll roads and all this sort of stuff. I don't know, personally, knowing a number of people who don't have a house, they're paying rent every week, and if they've got a couple of children, how do they pay rent, pay all these heavy tolls, huge grocery bills, education, medical? And I think people are getting to the point where they've lost all hope in there being a better way of life than what they're experiencing now.
I don't think as a government you can ever do enough to ease the cost of living for people because it's never going to be enough. I think what's really important is that governments can present a vision for a future that is optimistic, that people can see a way out and lay out a roadmap in order to get to that future. I think Australians are tough and resilient, but governments need to give people hope.
My husband and I have cut back right.
There we go. I think she said everything pretty much nailed on the head. So people are basically living to exist, working to exist.
Going out for dinners.
I don't know why I keep starting, guys, so sorry about that. They're living to exist. That's it. Stressing. How do I cut all the corners so I can keep my electricity going, heat my house, and put my kids in school? How far we have fallen. And she is not wrong. You tell them, Betsy, because they've privatised everything. How can you justify, in a cost of living crisis, now electricity going up another 10%, even more in some cases? Just do still Google search on electricity prices. They're going up again. 10%. How's that inflation? That's just price gouging. What's inflation supposed to be now? 2 point something? Yeah, BS. That's a pretty little number they calculate by excluding a whole bunch of things. That's not the real number. Things are still going up through the roof. Oh, things are coming down. Things are going to get better. Yeah, people are losing their jobs. People can't afford to live. I'm not making excuses for people who don't make good choices, but people who are working hard and making decent choices, there's not much optimism out there. And you've got people at this age even who are normally the target, of ridicule and criticism from younger generations, telling it how it is. They're not all doing well as well. Not all boomers and Gen Xers have all this money and houses and shit like that. I think everyone's suffering. Most people are suffering.
This is how bad the cost of living is in Australia for a woman.
$46.20 for a period cup. $11.50 for one deodorant. $16 for a basic face wash. $10 for shampoo, and that's on sale.
The government is not fixing nothing.
$11.90 for body wash, and that's on sale.
This is how bad.
Yeah, this transition, it might be easier. You don't have to buy all the girly products anymore. All right, one final one. I'm not sure if this one's a transformer or not that it matters, but let's jump in.
Good evening, people of Melbourne. I just want to make this quick rant video about the crazy rental prices this year and how difficult it is to even find an apartment to live. So, 2 years ago, when I moved to Thornbury from the city, I was able to get a one-bedroom apartment for only $270 per week. And it's very close to my workplace, so after I finished my lease, I decided to renew, where the price has gone up a bit. It went from $270 to $290 per week, which is, I think, still very reasonable. But this year, if ever you check at every website, you can no longer find anything around that price range. The cheapest place you could probably find is around $280 per week, but that's only for a studio. If you are aiming to look for at least a one-bedroom apartment, the cheapest you could probably find is, $350, $360 and above. And your struggle doesn't end there. Booking an inspection is also very hard. Sometimes you even try to call the numbers listed in the advertisement and nobody answers. Then, once you successfully booked for an inspection and you go there, there will probably be around 30 to 50 people looking at that house. So what are the chances that you are the one who's gonna get picked? Just a few weeks ago, I got interested with this one-bedroom apartment, $420 per week, around Preston. But when I arrived there, I was surprised by the number of people interested in that place as well. So then, I just thought that we are already at a point where a $420 a week budget for a one-bedroom apartment is the average or probably even below average. And since my lease is finishing soon and I don't want to end up homeless, I will be forced to push my budget up to aim for more expensive property so I will have less competition. So now I just can't help but wonder, on the following years, will we ever experience a decrease in rent? Will my agent or landlord ever send me an email saying my rent prices will go down from XXX to $450 or to $480 or whatnot? Because every year the numbers just keeps going up.
Yep, that's never going to happen. Unfortunately, you're never going to get that email. The costs of just being a landlord are through the roof. And I said I'm not defending landlords blindly.
People of Melbourne.
I know there are some out there that do take the absolute piss. But I've experienced being a landlord before, and I can tell you now, there's a lot of costs that people just don't understand. So it isn't just the mortgage, so to speak, or the interest component of the mortgage that the rent covers, or is supposed to. Well, it doesn't even come close to cover. Wouldn't get halfway there these days, especially if you're highly leveraged, like most investors are. You got insurances going up 30% year on year if you're lucky. That's a good deal. You've got your land tax going through the roof. You've got property management fees. You got maintenance. Tradies are more and more expensive. Everything's going up. So what's the government going to do? What can the government do about this? Not much. They're going to have to spend about 30 years building a whole bunch of social infrastructure and social housing for people so they can be able to afford somewhere to live and have a quality of life. But I can't see it happening anytime soon. I think it's going to take decades. As I said, 30 years. With the amount of people coming in, the amount of immigrants, this person's probably an immigrant coming in on a visa or trying to get permanent residency. The amount of those is hundreds of thousands a year, and we're not building that many houses a year. What about the natural population growth as well of Australian citizens? This is just going to get worse, and property is going to get more expensive, and the costs for landlords to own properties is going to get more and more. The government will probably put more regulations on landlords, which will then increase the prices. More regulatory checks and all this sort of stuff, which is just propping up an industry. Anyway, guys, that's a rant from me. I think everyone's doing it tough on all sides. Working class, middle class. I don't think upper class are probably feeling it too hard. But the people there in the trenches every day and those who make society go around, making life tough. It's like life is tough for them. They're not making it tough. Life is tough for them. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.